What is up, y'all? It's your boy Aniki coming at you with a new video. I decided to do a chapter review of My Hero Academia 292. And one of the first reasons I just want to say is because you guys have honestly asked me to go back to doing these for a while. I've had multiple comments throughout the past year that's kind of like, yeah, I really enjoy these live streams, which you should bring back the chapter reviews. Two, I didn't really do anything special when I hit 1K because I was so busy with the My Hero, the greatest manga of 2020 stream, and then planning my own top 10 of 2020 video, that I kind of just let 1K go by without really doing anything to celebrate. And I don't think that's really cool. Three, this was just a chapter where the finish of it was really polarizing. So I just kind of really want to give my own takes and breakdowns besides, in the environment of the Church of MHA, where we have the podcast, but that's multiple voices. We end up getting in arguments. So this is just your boy Aniki giving you his takes on the latest chapter of My Hero Academia. So for those of you who haven't been here, we're going to kind of run through the entire chapter, borderline page by page, but not quite. I'm going to try to keep it a bit reasonably concise and make sure that it's a quality video for you guys. But one of the things that I really liked about the chapter is that it does the thing that Horikoshi loves to do, which is the 1 or 2 page flashback, sometimes 3, where you just throw in a quick, hey, this is to properly contextualize this moment that you're experiencing. This is how you'll know what's going on or why it's happening. So we immediately get back to, Genius seeing the footage that Dabi had airing, really not being too fond of the approach and decided that he wants to take this matter into his own hands. We see that he's not necessarily back in full health, of course, and that's pretty quickly established when, he lands, gets Makia and everybody wrapped up in carbon fiber. Bakugo's excited to see him, which a lot of us were talking about how the main thing that was a justification for if Genus was going to still be alive, but if Genus is still going to be alive, then the main thread tying him to the plot is Bakugo's relationship with him and how he wants to tell him his hero name. One of the things that I think is especially great about this is that Bakugo's immediately like, missing person, huh? Yeah, right. And that's also like him just hopping out of Ida's arms, being ready to go. Dabi's immediately like flustered to see that Genus is alive, but one of the things that I like is we've been heavily discussing whether or not the social ramifications of Dabi's words would ring true. And the thing is that the Can't You See killing kid had a scene in the last chapter where we kind of talked about, I don't know, I think anybody would have to lose faith, or the chapter before, whichever one. And here we kind of see Dabi trust that same notion where he's like, all right, I was wrong about that. You're alive, but that really doesn't matter. Because the truth is that Endeavor is still abusive. That's still what led to the crazy violent accident. That's still what led to Ray being hospitalized. That's still why Shoto's got this scar in his face. All that stuff is still true. That is all still a ramification of his hero system, where he was stuck at number 2 for so long, trying to chase All Might. So all these hero system failings are still true for me. My life still represents, I'm still the son of Endeavor. So that's all that really matters here, even if you're still alive, Genus. And one of the things that we also talked about is that at the end of the day, this part of the conflict is not being live streamed. There was a helicopter, they were recording the video feed, but the reality is that all across the nation now, video outlets have been taken over by the Paranormal Liberation Front, specifically by Skeptic, thanks to his Feel Good Inc. satellites, which you got to see a glimpse of during My Villain Academia. So we know that they've got the feed cut. If Genus still dies here, especially when you think about the fact that if Dabi himself is the one who kills Genus, all they really found when Dabi allegedly killed himself was a piece of his jaw, and they were willing to believe that the rest of him had been burned to ash. So if he cooks Genus here, the temperature at which he's dealing with is likely going to just completely fry him, and Genus is not actually in fighting shape. When he lands, within the first 2 to 3 pages, he lands, makes his little speech, but within the first bit of struggling Makia has, he's already started to get a nosebleed. That panel drip isn't him talking about his outfit, my guy, it's him suffering. And so this is one of the things that I like about Horikoshi and keeping consistency, where we talked about how, here's a way to put this. Best Genus lifted up a skyscraper that is comparable to Makia in size, possibly even bigger and heavier. Yeah, you can argue that it wasn't fighting back necessarily, but he was able to hold up the skyscraper without any bleeding, any of that, during the Sky Egg arc of Vigilantes. Whereas here, obviously, his physical condition's been weakened. He's lower. He's not able to deal with this quite as well as he would like to. His hair's not even staying in place due to the fact that he's being caught in the throes of the chaos. All these little artistic signs that Horikoshi's throwing in there just to make sure you understand that it's a pretty dire situation. And the thing here that I like about that scene is that it immediately transitions to show the way Spinner has been taking over the role that Twice used to have in the story. Where for the League of Villains, yes, obviously Shigaraki is basically the MC. Yes, Dabi is in fact his deuteragonist rival character. Toga's the girl that's in the group, but obviously like she's not necessarily in love with Shigaraki or anything like that, which I love to see. Is that's something that we have differently. That may change when she gets to the battlefield and sees Shigaraki in the complete burned husk of a state that he is. I don't know if that's the route that Horikoshi's going to go with that or not, though. But yeah, so Twice being the heart, the person who was really trying to keep it together, the person who really cared about them. Now Spinner's the one who's always looking out for Shigaraki, making sure that their team is being held together, focusing on making sure that Toga gets back. It's good to see that this consistency that has been highlighted since he's gone through his own loyalty complex phase to run My Hero Academia, that not only has that allowed him to become more loyal to Shigaraki, but more focused around him harboring and maintaining the safety of the team, which is something that I'm really fond of for Spinner's character. Now, the thing that I really like about this is that while Spinner is desperately trying to reach Shigaraki with his words, trying to tap into the fact that he hasn't destroyed anything, literally biting into his head, trying to get him to realize that they're in danger as Hado's about to bear down on them with another huge attack, Dabi uses his flash fire fist to take out Hado. Now, there's a lot of people who would look at this and they're like, oh man, like another girl being taken out really quickly. Here's the reality of the situation. Hado's blast were the most destructive things on the battlefield. She's got the highest stamina out of anybody here. She's a flying attacker. She's got massive DC. She did a huge amount of damage to Shigaraki. Yes, part of that was also the jet kindling from Shoto, but the reality is that if Shoto's attacks are in fact weaker than Endeavor's, as it is logically implying, with the naming being kindling, then we can also say that a good amount of that damage was also from Nejire herself, and that puts Shigaraki on his back. Now, taking her out also, though, highlights the fact that while Dabi already has allegedly everything that he wants, Dabi has gotten his message about the messed up nature of hero society out. And because of that, he technically no longer needs the League of Villains. But he makes it a point to turn around in the middle of fighting Shoto after liberating himself and melting the carbon fiber cables, which, by the way, that means he's sitting at, I believe, around 3,600 degrees Celsius. It might be Fahrenheit. Regardless, this is some extremely hot fire. This is some next level, real deal stuff. If Tetsu tried to run through this, he'd probably be melted. Dabi's been holding back the entire series, and that's just the reality of the situation. He hasn't used any of his flash fire fist moves, and now he's been pulling them out left and right. And we see that Hado is immediately dropped, and Dabi comments that it's Endeavor's fault, another child with a bright future being destroyed by his flames, while Shoto's freaking out. But the main thing here is that Dabi did opt to choose to protect the League of Villains, even when they were no longer necessarily profitable to his plan. So that's something worth considering. I do think that, as East was always yelling on the podcast about, this might be one of those signs that while Dabi does later go on to say within this chapter that he doesn't have feelings or care about people, he did go out of his way to protect them. And maybe while Horikoshi was baiting us with a lot of Dabi's stats and the data books, it's very clear that like maybe the comments about Twice being like a brother in combat isn't necessarily all, an act, especially when you factor in that he did give him the high five and try to actually encourage him to keep him going and keep his morale up as he was trying to finish off Hawks. We also see that while this is all going down, that Genus is already coughing. And the thing is that Genus coughing at this point, struggling so hard to stop Makia, is an extremely bad sign when you factor in that it's after this, after Hado's taken out, after Genus has had him wrapped up for a little while, already been coughing, already started to get a nosebleed, started bleeding out of his eyes. It's after those things have already begun to happen that Shigaraki gives Makia the command to destroy. And obviously he's like, oh man, there's a huge burst of power, and he's trying to deal with this. And we see the cut back to, Shigaraki's childhood home before it's destroyed. And that's how he has like the final last bit of mental will to tell Makia to go ahead and keep destroying. But the thing is that Shigaraki is genuinely on his last legs. He's at his last little 3% battery. I think that even though he's telling him to destroy it, there's gonna, if he gets some time to like get his wits about him, he's more than likely gonna call for the retreat play. That just would be the most logical thing. Obviously, like we had this huge debate about whether or not Shigaraki was going to accept that because he would want like an absolute victory because he was not destroying everything. But the reality is that they've lost a good amount of forces, as we find out here, where they've lost about half the near high ends that were there, even though also the heroes have lost about half of the people who were present at the hospital. Depending on the size of those teams, that can mean a substantial amount of loss for the Hero Society. The reality is that the way it seemed is like the biggest and most powerful forces were at the hotel and at this particular site. If that's the case, you're gonna look. If that's the way we're looking at it, we could argue that roughly 20% of Hero Society has died at this location, just by the nature of like how intense if the focus of the forces seems to be with everybody in this particular one city. Like the fact that they covered an entire city, so there's a good chance that we just lost like 20% of the heroes already like being confirmed here, and that's before factoring in the stuff that happened at the villa, and that's before factoring in any potential other bases around the world or around the country that they may have been surrounding and getting into combat with until this present time. Now, we get an awesome panel of, the heroes putting in work. The main thing I like about that is just that it once again highlights that while yes, the hero society is saturated, yes, they do make mistakes, they do still have some inherent value. It's been very easy to become completely disillusioned with hero society based on what we've been getting lately in the story. So it's good to have it kind of validate itself a little and show out that they do actually have a presence and a value worth contributing to the story and to the people around them. And then you get to see a Lamprey Nomu pulling up on Burnin as she's about to get snuck from behind, and somebody comes up and smacks it in the brain. Now, the thing that I love about this is that it shows that like the fighters, even those who don't necessarily have high DC quirks, if they have high enough skill, can in fact make it a point to get brain blows in on the Nomu, which should at the very least be capable of causing them to lose consciousness, just because it is their brain getting rattled. Now, Shoto and we proceed back. When we cut back, there's obviously the eternal beam struggle between trying to steal Makia and him trying to break free. Shoto's fully committed to a mid-air combat. Dabi and Shoto going at it, flames everywhere. Season 6 is going to be stellar unless everybody runs away from the anime because they're afraid of having to deal with the blowback of the clouds are too still Twitter here. But no, in all seriousness, this is going to be an amazing this scene should be truly amazing in the anime. That said, we get like hard confirmation that while Dabi may still care about his allies in the League of Villains, his behavior is indicative of that, even if his words have not been. He directly, when told that Natsuo could have died to ending, it's like, man, it's a shame he didn't die because that would have hurt Endeavor's feelings. Dabi, like, the Todorokis are over. Toya is dead. Like, I know, like, some people are like, yeah, I love calling him Toya now, but, like, no. There is no Toya. He is Dabi now. There's no going back. That's why this man is having a fight where he's slowly melting his own face off, and he doesn't care. He's just smiling, knowing that he's breaking the heart of Endeavor. Like, Shoto is still calling out to him as Toya, is still, like, seeing him as his brother, and I think that's one of the things that I find to be kind of interesting about this. Is that we're still getting to see, like, even through this all, like, even through Shoto trying his hardest to fight him, Shoto is still, in fact, crying, shedding tears. It's still hurting him to do this. And one of the most important things is that Dabi kind of looks at this as just, I still get to kill you. This is a great and winning scenario. Now, the thing that I like about this, though, is that it shows that the League of Villains are moving further and further away from being potentially redeemable people. Now, when we get Shigaraki's backstory, you can think of it as, well, little Tanko wanted to be a hero, and so maybe Shigaraki still has some good in him. But then you remember that we got the Tomura Shigaraki origin chapter, almost as a way to say that he's become a completely different person now anyway. So the person who was Tanko, the person who wanted to be a hero, the person who we would have been happy to see and try to save is gone. And the same thing I think is being established here with Dabi. And when you look at what has happened with Toga during this arc, Toga herself, when she finally went and approached Odoraka, killed the old lady, did all that other stuff just to get her in the room and ask her the question about whether or not what she does is going to allow her to, be safe or committed. And the thing is that she didn't get the answer she wanted, so she realized she's going to have to be on the run the rest of her life. She can't live the way she wants to in this current society. She has to be okay with Shigaraki destroying it all, and that may even mean losing Deku and Uraraka, and she has to accept that. So Toga, during this arc, has come to the conclusion that she is resigned to live outside of the rules of regular hero society. Dabi has made his affirmations that he has rejected the path to having his family back. He has rejected the idea of being back with them. Spinner reaffirmed his loyalty during MVA, and we get to see the culmination of that with him, the way his role has functioned this arc. Compressed as being somebody who was already committed to the side of villainy, seeing as he's one of the older criminals, and then we saw twice his affirmation. And even though he died here, it is imperative that we note that he died doing everything in his power to save his allies. This is the arc that, for the League of Villains faction, solidifies them as an actual group dedicated to working together to take down Hero Society. And this is where we see the culmination of their efforts, and where we see the culmination of them coming together and really learning how to be a team, even if they don't necessarily have that focus on each other. That is where this arc is designed to be. This is where they've officially become that team, that army, that group, that villain faction. This is where they earn their status as, somebody that's mentioned alongside the Akatsuki or whatever, where this is where the group has finally done everything they've wanted. They've destroyed the country physically. They've rampaged through miles and miles of it. They've taken on the sociological aspects of it and flipped it on its head, where people aren't going to feel comfortable believing in the thing that they've been believing in for actual decades now, and they've been trusting it. The villains have basically won the game across the board narratively. Everything else they try to get out here is basically extra, as long as Shigaraki and Dabi, or as long as Shigaraki and Makia can get out. The potential for Shigaraki and the villains to win at any point, come back, and have the victory is sky high. Especially if, as a part of the kit that he got for Quirk, he got that teleporting quirk, because at that point he could just teleport any members of the League of Villains back to him because he is close to him. That's obviously in the realm of theory and speculation, but it's just something worth noting that the villains may have already won, even beyond getting sent to prison. Now, we finally get, throughout the chapter, we haven't been focusing much on Deku, and we get his internal feelings. His concern for Genus was all throughout the chapter, but he starts to call himself the Deku who doesn't do anything or doesn't achieve anything. He starts really tearing down into himself and who he is. And this is unfortunate because it's a callback to, the Forest Training Camp arc. It's a callback to Overhaul arc, where Mirio, after breaking himself, protecting Eri, losing his quirk, he's sitting there unable to use his power, and he's like, I need some help, somebody, and then lo and behold, you turn the page, and it's the return of the power. My man, Togata Mirio, one of my Wi-Fi passwords, the legend, the myth, the man, putting aunties in the mud. Janitor agenda is dead. I thought you called them a quirkless bum. Thanks for representing everything wrong with Hero Society and being part of the problem and why we are where we are today in the story. Congratulations, everybody who shared the janitor memes. You're problematic and canceled. Mirio's back. It's Mirio season. Your show is over. But in all seriousness, the hope that Deku expresses when seeing Lemillion is something that I find intentional during this arc. We've been constantly getting these depressing scenarios where we just know everybody's going to die, and then to have Mirio show up, reveal that he's gotten his quirk back, and have him take out 4 near high ends while letting Ida save Hado, so that once again Ida's presence on the battlefield, even if he's not necessarily being emphasized right now, is accounted for, and it's shown that he is in fact contributing as a value with his presence. Now, the Mirio thing is one that I've seen people be really upset about or have very negative or positive emotions. I obviously being in the positive camp with my Mirio figure right here, him being my #1 favorite character, and having this art piece back here. Obviously, I'm a big pro Mirio guy, and the thing is that one of the things, the main argument that I hear against why they feel like Mirio shouldn't have gotten his quirk back so soon is the one thing that I heard that was kind of out there was that we didn't get enough of quirkless Mirio time. The reality is that Mirio is just a steadfast, happy-go-lucky, rock solid dude that even in the face of adversity isn't going to lose who he is. He's going to keep going forward, and he truly believed in Eri and her ability to get him his quirk back one day. So he wasn't going to be, this wasn't like we were going to get a bunch of time with Mirio where he was going to be moping and crying all the time or doing anything like that. He basically got suspended from classes and wasn't allowed to go to school, so he wasn't allowed to do any hero work either. So all he was really doing was hanging out with Eri. So the only times that it made sense to show Mirio were times where we were emphasizing Eri's presence in the story, and that's exactly how it worked out. Anytime we got updates with her, he was there, but just being Mirio, showing us that, like, yeah, he still doesn't have his power, but he's supporting her, he's still taking care of her in the meantime. That was literally the deal when we found out that he was going to be suspended, that he was going to be taking time off his classes to spend time with Eri. So the fact that we didn't see him with Eri at the start of the arc was actually kind of an indicator right there that we should have known that he was going to be coming back. But as much as people feel like this Mirio being used here is a way to enable Eri to potentially be broken, this is actually the opposite. This is another situation where it parallels the Overhaul arc, but a bit in reverse. And yes, during the Overhaul arc, Deku shows up after Mirio, and then, you know, he saves him, he protects him from Overhaul, he gets to eventually put Eri on his back due to using that power. He ends up being able to use 100% One For All full cowling, and Eri consistently rewinds him. But as a penalty of using that power so that he could fight Overhaul with her on his back, they were completely incapable of saving Night Eye. Now, if Eri had not had to use all of her power to help Deku fight against Overhaul, she technically, if she had tried to, would have been able to save Night Eye. And the same thing applies here, except it's the reverse. We already used the power before the conflict is over, because you notice that she's got just a tiny nub now. She doesn't have a huge horn. So we used the power before this big conflict. And now her stockpile, which was established back during joint training, that's how her quirk works. Monoma, when he copied it, establishes that it's a stockpile quirk, and therefore he can't just replicate and use it because he hasn't stockpiled up whatever the energy source is that she uses to rewind people. So she rewinded Mirio. More than likely, understand this also, that more than likely her quirk relies on like a negative, like a stressor or something like that, because notice how Redastro, stress gets stronger, made stockpile. Shigaraki has the whole, if he gets angry, the destruction practically spills out of him thing. The same way, like if she's hyper stressed out or really upset, the time seems to just kind of burst forth out of her in the same way that it did for Shigaraki as a child. And maybe that negative emotion, those stresses. So the thing is that especially with her being in a happier spot now, and they're not going to sit there and go, hey, little Eri, just so you know, your quirk relies on, you know, stress energy. So you need to think about how hundreds and hundreds of heroes just died so that you can feel really sad inside, so that we can hopefully rewind and heal some of these other ones. That's not how this is going to go down. So I think we just got to accept the fact that Mirio was specifically brought back so that Eri could not save people at the end of this arc. Or that if she does save someone, it will be way further down, way down the line in the series, towards the last arcs. I actually expect us to be going all the way to at least the end of the third year for Deku and them. And I don't think Eri will ever have enough mastery of her quirk within story to make it to be such a problem where we really need to be afraid that she's gonna just break the consequences of the story. It seems like Horikoshi's been doing a really good job of like moving through time and keeping people's practicing and development at a reasonable pace, because Eri's not going to be sitting there getting combat training unless the hero commissioner or something like that gets a hold of her. So yeah, Eri's not broken. In fact, bringing back Mirio is specifically so that she cannot break the story at this juncture, similar to how Aizawa was constantly removed from different fights so that he couldn't just erase people's quirks and have them get dog walked. Quirkless Overhaul gets dog walked by Deku. He got blitzed, and if Deku wanted to, he could have just stomped him out for a bit and he didn't have a quirk, and they would have won. He couldn't have that. Think about how clutch Aizawa was during this arc, just stopping Shigaraki from being full power and being able to wipe the hero so easily. So it's the same thing here Aries being utilized in such a way that she cannot break the plot and she cannot save people after this particular day or on this day for the next couple of weeks. Like, so whatever major injuries people get, they're going to be kind of stuck with. And even if they weren't stuck with it, she'd still only be able to heal 1 or 2 people at a time. So this is still a thing that would take months and months and months just to keep getting certain individuals healed until she got way, way better with her quirk. And I don't think we're going into the direction of we use child slavery for healing, though. I mean, this is a war with child soldiers, so who knows. One last thing that I do want to just once again emphasize is that we officially got the killing off of any Uwu Dabi. Just once again, Horikoshi drawing him like a complete devil to kind of just really emphasize that it's not anything sweet. It's all tragic out here. So yeah, I think I'm gonna try to wrap everything up around here. I don't think there's anything else that I really need to touch on within the chapter. I might have missed something. If I do, I apologize. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. If you've made it this far, please do just drop a like and go ahead and subscribe. Leave a comment, let me know. This is actually one of my first, okay. This video is hopefully going to be done and edited by before Thursday, but this is actually my first time using, this is literally, today is the first day I've ever used like video editing software even. So I'm going to try to, make some adjustments here, do some cutting and editing within the video. So let me know if I create a good video for you guys. Make sure, especially I would like to feedback, and let me know if you want me to keep doing these videos. I would love to know if you want more solo reviews in addition to the live streams. So you can follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Instagram, you can join the Discord. There's all kinds of ways to keep in touch with me and the rest of the members of the Church of MHA. So if you like anything I had to say, I'll see you Sunday for the next episode. That's all I got left. Well, y'all have a wonderful day. Anaki out.